This is a special day when we commemorate our mothers. Mothers come in all shapes and sizes. They come in forms of men. They come in forms of aunts and uncles. They can even come in forms of sisters who nurture us and love us. And so today we commemorate all these mothers and special people in our lives because they really are part of the reason who we are. And today I wish a happy and blessed day to all mothers, grandmothers, and any person who serves or served in this role. Although this day does honor individually Mother's Day, I don't think we need a special day for this. I don't think we need a special day for Father's Day or Grandparents' Day. I think every day we have the opportunity to appreciate these special people in our lives. And how nice it would be if we were to show this love every day in our lives. So that's something to think about. I think it's great to have a Mother's Day. I can remember growing up that those of us who had a living mother, we got a red carnation, and those who had a deceased mother, we had a white carnation. And in a way that was really nice, but when you'd sit in the congregation, you'd look around at how many white flowers were there. So how many mothers had passed to spirit? But it was a way for that, and I'm speaking of mostly my mother, she sat there with honor to wear her white flower, and I sat there with honor to wear my red flower, because I was truly blessed with a wonderful mother. And I think I'm a good mother to my children. I have a wonderful relationship with my children and their spouses, and I'm so grateful for that. Children are a lot of fun, and they can also be a lot of other things. And with all of this in mind, I decided to talk about relationships. Do y'all have any idea how big this topic is? Well, the more I worked on it, the more I thought, I'll just do the best I can. And I want to put a plug in for David, someone who gets up here every week with a message. I want to tell you folks, it's not easy. Now I realize that David is filled with wisdom and he loves to teach, but he still has to prepare. So I say, kudos to you, David. The first thing we need to know about relationships is they are gifts from God. Yeah, they really are. Now, I say God, I have no problem with the word God, but if you want to say spirit, universal energy, if you want to say anything that is the all that is, that is fine. I just have no problem with the word God. So I will use that today, but you feel free to use any other thing you want to. Although a blessing, relationships can be stable or unstable. They can be dull or very colorful. They can be calm or chaotic. They can be consistent or inconsistent. They can be predictable and unpredictable. They can be complicated and uncomplicated. The silver lining of all of this is that relationships make us adaptable and make us who we are. We have learned from David's teachings that we do not have to be a victim of our circumstances. So I'm not going to go into that. David does that way too much better than I could. But we have to remember that we are not a victim, but we still get to enjoy and appreciate all these different aspects of relationships. Brian Chalker wrote a free verse, which means non-rhyming poem, years ago called A Reason, a Season, or a Lifetime. Now, if we have time, I will read it to you, but it's at the back of this, so we'll see. But it's a take on people who come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. People that come into our life for a reason, usually it's something specific. And I decided to use my example of when I had knee replacement back in March of 2022. I had expected to go home, but I ended up in rehab for 3 weeks. And the people that were in that rehab facility were the most wonderful people. They cared for me, they prepared food. I mean, I could not have asked for better care. But I also, believe it or not, got to know a lot of the people there. And I enjoyed getting to know these people for a short time. But the reason they were there was to take care of me. And when I came home, Susan took care of me for a week. But there was a real reason for all of this. And when the reason was over, those people, except for Susan, were no longer a part of my life, but yet they were, because they were in me. I had met these beautiful souls, and every one of them had a story. Some of these stories were difficult, others were joyful. And I learned from these people, and possibly they learned from me. Who knows? But when the reason was over and I returned home, these people, I have not seen them since. But again, I say they were in my life for a reason, and maybe I was in their life for a reason. And then we have seasonal relationships that can be short-lived or long-lived. I look back over my life at the people who have come and gone, and what I realized is when I have learned from them what I needed to learn, and they have learned from me what they needed to learn, we often grew apart. Some of those relationships were hard to let go, and this happens with people with spouses, with partnerships, with any close relationship, but it goes back to, it's a season. And it's a season for growing and learning and enjoying or not. But the lessons that we learn from these seasonal relationships, I think of them with my life as business relationships primarily. When you work in an office environment, so much of the time, that's how you know these people, just with business. Now, some of them can become friends, but most of them are seasonal relationships. And I think of people who have actually ratcheted from friend to acquaintance, because we had gotten to the point where I had learned, or they had learned, what was needed to be learned. And it changed the status, but it did not change the fact that they still meant something to me. David teaches us so correctly to not judge right or wrong, good or bad, but to hold something in neutral and contemplate it. So if you have a seasonal relationship that all of a sudden goes away and you are hurt, think back on what you've learned from them and what they've learned from you, and maybe you'll understand why it was a seasonal relationship. They happen quite often. And then we have lifetime relationships. And they're just that, for a lifetime. Generally, this includes our families, and sometimes people wish we didn't have those lifetime relationships. But then again, the people that are in our lives are there to teach us lessons. And man, can we learn the lessons. Lifetime relationships, they're the struggles and the hills and the valleys in every family. There are also many homes that work hard to stabilize. And often they do, sometimes they don't. but they keep working at it, because that's what we do. We work at relationships. Perseverance and prayer goes a long way. And I'm going to say about prayer for a minute. Again, I go back to Kathy and what she does for us. That prayer community means a lot to me. And I know that there are a lot of prayers that may not get on the list. But I encourage people, if you have a request, to send it to Kathy and let it be sent out to the rest of us. Okay, relationships can be uplifting and encouraging when they are easy. Yet they can be confusing and hurtful when they are difficult. And this sweet Johnny's bringing me some water. You are a good man. Thank you. Thank you, Johnny.
You're welcome.
I think of life as a hum. When the hum is pretty steady, everything's going pretty well. Everything's going really well. But you know what? Sounds and vibrations, they go this way. And even though I like the hum that is steady, life is much more enjoyable and interesting when you have the fluctuations. I'm going to tell you a little story that made me think about this. Many years ago, when I was working in Center City, Charlotte, I was on a lower floor waiting for the elevator. It was about 5 o'clock or so. And the elevator finally got there, and there was a friend with me. Elevator opened, and it was packed. And of course, everybody looking, no way you're going to get on this elevator. And my friend sort of pushed me on, and he got on there too. But when he got on, there was no room for him to turn around. So as everybody was on the elevator facing front, watching the panel as where, the floors are going and you're going down, and he said, "Hello, everybody. I know you wonder why I called this meeting." And it broke the tension in the elevator. So the hum that had been going, because everybody was really bored and ready to go home, all of a sudden was going up and down, and everybody got off the elevator laughing, talking, and the whole humor of the day had been changed. Well, in many respects, that elevator is a microcosm of this crazy world we live in, which is a large, impersonal institution where anonymity, isolation, and independence are the uniform of the day. People can be surrounded by other people and still not feel a community. You can be in a crowded place and still feel very alone. You can attend a party and feel very alone. One thing that I can say about HeartLight is that this doesn't happen here. Everybody that comes in the door here is welcomed and appreciated and loved immediately. And that says a lot. And that is one of the reasons I got into metaphysics all these many years ago, was because when I walked in that door, and it's been a long time ago, I felt like I was at home. And how wonderful it is to feel a part of something. But see, that's what a relationship is you work together, you learn together. And these can very well be lifetime relationships, because you're part of this community that loves you and cares. We cannot take relationships lightly. And they do not just happen. They require effort. Not a big effort usually, but it's an effort. Coming here, being here in person, to hug somebody, touch somebody, love somebody, that's a little bit of an effort. Now, I admit I live too far away to come here every Sunday, but I will tell you that when Tim does a panning of the congregation, and I'm watching the streaming, I'm loving every one of you. So I may not be here physically, but I am sending that energy because I do love you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you do. Apostle Paul was an example of establishing supportive relationships. I'm going to read 1 Thessalonians 2:8. We cared so much for you that we were pleased to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you have become so dear to us. Here was a man that when he wrote to the churches, he always called by name 2, 3, or 4 people to acknowledge how dear they were to him. How nice it is to hear our name when someone speaks to us. We matter. They remember. It means a lot. And the Apostle Paul had developed strong relationships with these people, and he let them know it. In that verse, there are 3 words that form the basis for any relationship. The first one is care. Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. I use David as an example. He cares about every one of us. And we know he does, so that when he speaks to us, we're listening because we know he cares. The next word was share. For us to share in deep relationships necessitates that we get up close and personal. It's hard to share at a distance. So all you people online, again, if you can come here, it's a good thing. And then the other word is dear. Paul loved these people. And when we love others as individuals of value, we communicate it. Think what it means to have a hug. Man, I got some good hugs this morning. That was wonderful. I don't get a lot of hugs, so that was great. Or just a pat on the back. Sending a card. And I'm going to say thanks to, and they're not here, but Marcia and Jackie, who are the Compassionate Care team, who send cards to people. That means a lot to me to get a birthday card and a Christmas card, and I'm sure it does to all of you. It's just making the effort to show that you care. May we never forget that love is something we do, not just something we say. It's so easy to say I love you, but how much better it is to show I love you. When we make room for people, the walls of indifference and apathy come down. Because we make room to find the best of others, which makes us find the best in ourselves. There are 4 good scriptures about love, and you've all heard them, but I'm going to tell you them again today. And I had no slides because I was working on this to the last minute, so Tim had no chance to make slides. But it's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Isn't that a beautiful scripture? The next one is 1 Corinthians 13 and 13. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And John 15 and 12, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And then 1 John 4 and 19, we love because he first loved us. Part of any relationship is avoiding judging. In Matthew 7 in the Amplified Bible, Do not judge and criticize and condemn others unfairly with an attitude of self-righteous superiority, as though assuming the office of judge, so that you will not be judged unfairly. Does this mean we never judge others? Is it wrong to have an opinion that someone's conduct is what David calls missing the mark? What does Jesus mean when he says, judge not? So Matthew 7:2-3 from the Amplified says, for just as you hypocritically judge others when you are sinful, miss the mark, and unrepentant, so will you be judged, and in accordance with your standard of measure used to pass out judgment, and judgment will be measured to you. Why do you look at the insignificant speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice and acknowledge the log that is in your own eye? In other words, let us refrain from attempting to straighten out the faults of others and first work on our own shortcomings. I've started doing what David does, and that's looking up the root words for words, what they mean. And the Greek word for judge is krino, K-R-I-N-O. And it can be translated to pronounce an opinion concerning right and wrong, to condemn, to be of an opinion, to deem, and to think. We must take care of what we think and say about others, for each of us will be held to that standard that we have imposed upon others. Going back to David's teaching, do not judge right or wrong, good or bad, but take it into contemplation and just observe. We don't always have to give an opinion, because unless someone asks for our opinion, they probably don't want it. We can investigate, think about, form an opinion, but leave the judging to God, because only God can judge the hearts of others, and only He has that prerogative. We are here to take care of ourselves and to take care of others, but we are not here to judge others. People are so different. And when we accept people for who they are, for what they are, we've come a long way. Because when we avoid the judging, we come to acceptance. In this 3D world we live in, we know it by contrast: good, bad, dark, light, tall, short. Everything is the opposites. But we experience God's power to heal souls through our authenticity. And these authenticities come through the relationships with others. Romans 15:7 tells us, accept one another, then just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. The verb accept means to receive wholeheartedly, to warmly welcome people. In short, to love people just as they are, not what we intend them to be. Time is running short, and I have lots of other pages, so I will see what we've got here. We just need to work on the acceptance of others who look different, dress differently, talk differently, walk differently, anything that's different. Remember, that's the ego's job, is to make us separate from one another. And after we've accepted, we learn to forgive. And forgiving others can be a real job, because we have to have accepted whatever has occurred to appreciate that that person is where they are in their journey. Not on our journey, on their journey. And how many times have we attempted to change the path of someone else and they didn't ask us? It's that acceptance and the forgiveness. I know that many people deal with difficulties. Just this week, I had conversations with three different people who had family difficulties that were truly difficulties. And yet they were working on them. They weren't just saying, oh, this is really terrible and I'm just going to leave it like it is. They were taking steps to make things better. Primarily, they were taking steps to make it better within themselves, to accept the situation. It goes back to we're responsible for ourselves. Now, we can be responsible for others to a degree, but we're not responsible for that person's journey. We're all where we are because we're supposed to be where we are. Otherwise, we would not be here. And if people are not here, they're not ready for this part of the journey. But we're doing the best we can to get the word out, aren't we? I do want to tell you, this is the neatest little book. It's called The Quiet Mind. And it's the sayings of White Eagle. And the print in this is very small, so I printed it larger for me to do this. But White Eagle is a spokesperson for a group of Illumined teachers known as the Star Brotherhood. It says, to forgive is often difficult, my children, but with forgiveness, release comes to the spirit. The soul that has been in bondage and perhaps stretched upon the cross of suffering no longer suffers. In the degrees that you respond to love and beauty, you are increasing beauty on this earth, and by the same token, decreasing that which lies on the other side of the scale, the darkness and ignorance and bitterness and selfishness of humanity. Let us admit our need for one another and understand that relationships are extremely valuable to us. Life would be very boring if we didn't have relationships. Now, I have to tell you, I have a dog and a cat that are really special to me too. So it doesn't just have to be people. It can be our furry friends that teach us a lot of lessons. And they fall more regretfully into the seasonal side. So let us pray. Father, Mother God, as we go back into the world today, let us go with hearts filled with love and gratitude for our relationships. May our hearts be open to accept others, even if we find it difficult. May we allow others, as we allow ourselves, to stay on our life journeys, knowing that divine order is always working. May we refrain from judgment and embrace acceptance. May we always be open to forgiveness to others and to ourselves. May we feel gratitude for the mothers and mother figures in our lives and for all who helped and continue to help mold us. May we remember that what we visualize, we realize. And may we all realize healthy, prosperous, productive, and happy lives in this beautiful world. And so it is. Amen.